Defiled are one of the most classic death metal acts coming from Japan, and despite their impressive 3 decades of career, this is their 7th original album. We may think that death metal is a fairly simple style to define and that there is not exactly that much variation to be impressed by a proposal mainly coming from those who already have 30 years of the style. However, the highest level does not fail to impress by its strength and the way it does not give a second rest over 15 tracks. Okay, 14. Let's not count the outro, the speech. The production, however, is a bit strange, suffering, apparently, from the use of compression, especially in the sound of the guitars. Strange, but that doesn't stop you from enjoying this piece of Japanese extreme metal art, especially the drumming. It may suffer from having too many tracks, but in the end, a recommended album for those looking for old-school death metal.
We did not know this Italian band formed in 2017, and since then they have already edited an EP and now they arrive at the 2nd album. Raw sludge with a lot of punk in it. At least that's how it sounds to our ears, although I admit that it may be the fact that they sing in Italian, despite the band name in English, which makes us think of classic punk/crust bands. However, musically the proximity is really to Doom. Although initially I can't make a strong positive impression, I must admit that it doesn't take much to be surrendered to their music. Nice surprise.
If the name is unusual, what about the music? Calm down, this is not another experimental music proposal that works well on paper but then in reality is unpalatable. On the contrary, Klidas' music is captivating yet challenging. Maybe part of what captivates us is the way it challenges us. Largely instrumental but not purely, the elements of jazz and progressive combine very well without forgetting a healthy dose of psychedelicism, which makes it an extremely interesting and rewarding journey despite being just over 35 minutes of music. It only remains to say that Klidas means in Czech giant of silence. A designation as challenging as the music itself.
More than a live album and more than a simple re-recording of some of their songs, this work sees the Brits taking 5 songs from their 2 albums and giving them a whole new depth, which helps, a lot, the performance of Ariana Meixsell, a cellist who adds even more quality to something that already had it in abundance. Something that is especially audible on the epic, Glow, the title track of the 2nd album that comes in 3 separate parts but is represented here in its entirety. We know that by now we're all sick of live studio albums, and maybe because it goes against the grain, and definitely because of its quality, this resonance is an absolute addiction.
It may seem ungrateful to review a band with a past as illustrious and grand as Jethro Tull. There is always the skepticism of how a band with more than 50 years of history can add even more to a career of great quality, but it doesn't take much of Rockfloat, a kind of concept album, to be completely surrendered to their class, how the transverse flute still has the same effect on our ears and how their rock soul is still very much alive. Maybe we don't have here one of those memorable albums, as the weight of the name Jethro Tull supposes, or remarkable songs that grab us at first, but it is still a record that any Tull fan will not mind having in his audio library.
Despite being a recent label, the fact that it was born from Nuclear Blast and took part of its catalog makes us very curious about all releases from Atomic Fire Records. And Curse of Cain are no exception. And although they fit perfectly into the label of modern metal, with those commonplaces of metalcore, whether in the dichotomy of clean voices with the most extreme voices, or in the use of electronic arrangements, there is something more than that here. Something that may even surprise you. We have a gothic rib that appears in some tracks like Alive or Blame. It won't be enough to call them gothic metal, but it certainly makes their music sound refreshing.
This is the return of Kickhunter after 9 years away, which means that for many this will be their debut album. And the presentation could not be done with better work. Classic rock and roll with a lot of class that will drink to the imaginary we have of the style. An imaginary that, although North American, already belongs to the world. The fact that the band is German has no impact on the final result, since the feeling is really fantastic. Gangly groove and that class spread throughout an album where the overall quality is really high. Rock has never been so much fun.
If it was a surprise that the Acacia strain released 2 albums at the same time, it's a bigger surprise that this failure will follow as a powerful sludge/doom metal petard. Powerful and inspired. Composed of 3 long songs that almost total 40 minutes in total, this is an atypical work, so the decision to separate the waters is perfectly understandable, since this is a totally different album of its twin. In fact, I would venture to say that it is totally different from everything the band has done so far, which only makes our respect and admiration for them grow exponentially. With the same weight as always but with a distinct atmosphere, although the suffocation they transmit is similar, this is one of those albums that surprises as much as it captivates. Probably not the most interesting for traditional fans of the band, but for those who like sludge/doom metal is a must.